I'm Bob, an old electrician who spent his whole life bringing light to other people. I believe the light of kindness will always illuminate the path for those you love. My wife Eleanor and I worked tirelessly so our son Ryan could have a better life. We gave him everything from our money to our guidance. I thought I had built him a home, but it turned out to be an empty shell. On Christmas night, when I brought a gift filled with all my love, my daughter-in-law Jessica extinguished that light with a cold statement. "You have no place here, Bob." Could a father really stand by and watch his only son get deceived and manipulated? Could I just let them keep living in that illusion? Or was it finally time for me to use my power to save my son from a fake life? Once the Christmas lights are up, it's a whole new world. It's the kind of warm glow that makes everything feel a little safer, a little more in place. That's the feeling I was chasing when I pulled into the circular driveway of Ryan and Jessica's new townhouse in Chicago's high-end suburbs. The house itself was all sleek lines and modern angles, the kind of place you'd see in an architecture magazine, not a home. Not my style at all. I'm a simple guy, an old-school master electrician. I believe in a life built to last, not just look good. My own two-story house, a few towns over, has a wraparound porch and a big oak tree that's seen more Christmases than I have. But this was Ryan's dream. A dream I'd spent the last decade paying for. Every single piece of it, from the six-figure down payment to the custom Italian leather sofa that cost more than my first car. I remember the years with my wife Eleanor. She was the heart of our family, the one who saw the beauty in the everyday. We built my company, Carter Electric, and home services with a lot of sweat and a little bit of luck. I can still see her sitting at our kitchen table doing the books by hand. We had a saying, she and I. Our boy won't have to work for a dime, but he'll have to earn every penny of it. We wanted to give him a better life, not a free pass. That's a lesson I thought I had taught him. But as I walked up to the front door, a knot of unease began to form in my stomach. Something just felt wrong. I was carrying a heavy cardboard box filled with old family ornaments. The kind with a little history and a little wear. My favorite was a small hand-painted glass Santa that Eleanor and I bought on our first Christmas together back in 1997. When Jessica opened the door, she gave me a quick, almost rehearsed smile. "Bob, come in. We were just about to finish up." Her voice was a little too bright. I could see Ryan in the living room staring at his phone, the blue light reflecting off his face. The room itself was immaculate, decorated to perfection. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a showroom. I set the box down and looked at the Christmas tree. It was perfect. A big, elegant fir decorated with uniform silver and gold baubles, no crooked angels, no sentimental trinkets. It looked like something you'd see in a hotel lobby. I felt a little pang of sadness. "Hey, son. I brought the old ornaments. I thought we could put a few on the tree for old time's sake." I held up the glass Santa, a little lopsided from age. Ryan looked up, his expression a mix of politeness and vague irritation. Jessica's smile tightened. "Oh, that's so sweet, Bob. But we've already finished decorating. We're going for a more modern, cohesive look this year, you know." Her eyes darted toward a box of expensive matching baubles on the floor, still mostly full. She didn't want my family's ornaments anywhere near her perfect tree. I shrugged, trying to be a good sport. "No problem. We can just put them on another tree next year." I was about to ask Ryan how his new job was going. A job I had arranged for him, a detail he didn't know. He thought he was a rising star at Ascend Tech Solutions. In reality, he was a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. The silence between us stretched on heavy and awkward. Jessica looked down at her phone, her thumb flicking nervously across the screen. I could tell she was on edge. Ryan went back to his phone. I felt like an intruder in my own son's house. I knew then that this wasn't just about a tree. It was about me. About them not wanting me there. And I had a bad feeling that my perfectly wrapped gift was about to blow up in my face. But I hadn't even unwrapped the biggest gift yet. A new truck for my son. A top-of-the-line Ford F-250. It was my Christmas gift for him, and it had cost me $65,000. I had also made sure their bank account had a few extra digits in it before I came over a little bonus to help them pay for all the new furniture and the expensive landscaping I'd spotted on my way up the driveway. My generous side always got the better of me. I hoped my kindness would bring them joy, but all I got in return was a slight flinch from Jessica when I mentioned the truck. She said something about not needing anything else, but her eyes told a different story. She wanted me to leave, and it wasn't hard to see why. I could hear her friend Chloe on the phone, a faint voice coming from the next room. They were talking about me. My heart sank. I'd done everything for this kid, given him everything. He had a job he loved, a wife he adored, and a house that people only dreamed of. And what did I get in return? Silence. I got a silent snub from my own son and a blatant lack of appreciation from his wife. My wife Eleanor would have seen right through them. She always had a way of seeing the truth in people. I wished she was here with me so I could tell her about the way they were treating me. I'd seen the way Jessica treated him. She treated him like a child, like someone who needed to be told what to do. He never pushed back, never said a word. I saw the way she spent his money. I'd seen the credit card bills, the receipts, the endless shopping sprees. I hadn't said anything because I didn't want to cause any trouble. I wanted him to be happy, and if she was what made him happy, then so be it. But she didn't make him happy. She made him complacent. He was a puppet on a string, and she was the one pulling the strings. That's when I knew I had to do something. Not for me, but for him. I knew I couldn't stand by and watch them destroy each other. Not when I had the power to stop it. I had worked my whole life to get here, to build something from nothing. I wasn't going to let them take that away from me. I knew what I had to do. I had to take back control. I looked at Ryan one last time, his eyes still glued to his phone. He didn't even see me standing there. He didn't see the pain in my eyes, the sadness, the disappointment. He didn't see the way his wife was treating me, treating us. He was blind to it all. I decided I wasn't going to let him be blind anymore. I was going to open his eyes, and I wasn't going to let her stand in my way. My heart felt as heavy as a sledgehammer. It was the kind of feeling that sank deep into your bones and stayed there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my son and shake him. But I didn't. I stood there in the middle of their perfect living room, surrounded by their perfect Christmas decorations, and I felt like a ghost. I felt like I didn't belong. And that's exactly what she had planned all along. She wanted me to feel like an outsider. She wanted me to leave. And I was about to do exactly that. I walked over to the door, my fingers tightly clenched. Jessica looked up, a faint smile on her face. She thought she had won. She thought she had gotten rid of me. But she had no idea what I was about to do. She had no idea that the reality of our situation was about to come crashing down on her. She thought she had me all figured out, that I was just a senile old man who loved his son too much. She was wrong. I turned back to look at Ryan, his eyes still glued to his phone. I wanted to tell him everything. I wanted to tell him how his wife had been manipulating him, how she had been using him, how she had been laughing at me behind my back. But I didn't. I knew it wasn't the right time. I knew it would only make things worse. I had to play the long game. I had to wait for the right moment. And the right moment was about to arrive. I stepped back into the middle of the room, and for a second, everything stopped. Jessica's smile faded. Ryan looked up from his phone, a confused look on his face. I looked at them, my son, my daughter-in-law, the two people I loved more than anything in the world, and I knew that this was the end of the road for us. This was the end of the road for the way we were living. This was the end of the road for my generosity. I had given them everything, and what had I gotten in return? Nothing. I took a deep breath. My voice was calm, even unemotional. Jessica, I have something for you. Her eyes lit up. She thought I was giving her another gift. She thought I was going to hand her another check. She was wrong. I walked over to my bag and I pulled out a small, thin envelope. It wasn't filled with money. It wasn't filled with a check. It was filled with the truth. I handed her the envelope. This is for you. It's a gift, from me to you. She looked at it, a sickeningly sweet smile on her face. She thought it was a joke. She thought I was playing a game. She was wrong. She opened the envelope and her eyes widened. Her face drained of all color. She looked at me, her mouth open in shock. I had exposed her. I had shown her for the liar she was. She looked at Ryan, who was now standing looking at her, a confused look on his face. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what, but he knew something was wrong. Jessica's hands were shaking. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She was frozen. I looked at Ryan. Ryan, son, I have something for you too. He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion. I have something to tell you. I had his attention now. He was no longer looking at his phone. He was looking at me, and he was ready to hear what I had to say. I took a deep breath. Ryan, I have to tell you something. I had his attention now. He was looking at me, his eyes wide with anticipation. This house, it's not yours. It's mine. His face fell. He looked at me, a sense of betrayal on his face. He didn't understand. He didn't know. He thought it was his. He had lived here for a year. He had planned his future here. But it wasn't his. It was mine. And I was about to take it all back. I was going to take it all back from him, from both of them. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. I was going to take back my life. I was going to take back my legacy. I was going to take back my son. I drove away from their perfect house, my old Ford F-150 cutting a silent path through the fresh snow. The suburban streets were quiet, each window a little square of golden light. The kind of lights that were supposed to be about family and love. But all I could feel was a cold, hard knot of betrayal in my chest. Ryan's face a mask of confusion and shock. Jessica's face a frozen picture of panic. It wasn't enough. It was just the beginning. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove, letting the big familiar truck carry me. I drove for miles past little towns I'd wired and past houses I'd built. I had put my hands on every part of this life for Ryan. I'd built his world for him brick by brick. And tonight he let a little snake of a woman hiss at me, his own flesh and blood, in the middle of a family celebration. He let her do it. And that was the part that hurt the most. Not her venom, but his silence. His complete, baffling silence. I pulled over to the side of the road under a big snow-covered oak tree. It was a tree that had stood here for decades, and it would stand here for decades more. A reminder that some things were built to last. I turned off the engine and sat in the dark, the only light coming from the dashboard. For a moment, the silence was so loud, I thought my ears would ring. It was the kind of silence you get after an explosion. My mind was clear. The hot burning rage was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp certainty. I knew what I had to do. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out an old leather-bound notebook. It was my secret, a place where I kept a record of every major financial transaction I had ever made for Ryan. I called it my rainy day fund. I never thought the rain would be this cold. I flipped to a page, and there it was, in my own neat handwriting. Every single purchase, every single contract, every single gift I had paid for in the past 5 years. The 6-figure down payment on their house, the new Ford F-250 truck, the furniture, the appliances. It was all there. All of it. I pulled out a second phone, a cheap burner phone I used for business only. I had a few special numbers saved on this phone. Numbers for times just like this. I dialed the first number. It was my lawyer, Daniel Lewis. The phone rang a few times, and then a sleepy voice answered. "Bob, you know what time it is," he grumbled. "Yeah, Daniel, I know. Listen, I need you to do me a favor. You know that account I have, the one with all the money for the boys? Future, I need you to get on the horn with the bank and put a hold on all of it, effective immediately." Daniel was a good lawyer. He didn't ask questions. He just said, "I'm on it," and hung up. I knew he would take care of it. He was one of the few people I could trust. Next, I called the bank. My banker, a woman named Sarah, answered the phone. "Bob, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Sarah, I need you to do something for me. I need you to activate the wintergreen protocol on my accounts, all of them. I want to stop all payments, all transfers, everything. Effective immediately." Sarah's voice was filled with shock. "Bob, are you sure about this? This is a big step," she said. "Sarah, I'm sure. I'm more sure about this than I've ever been about anything in my entire life." She was a good woman, a good banker. She knew when to stop asking questions and just do what I asked her to do. She said, "Yes, sir," and hung up. I sat in the truck for a few minutes, the silence once again filling the cab. I knew what I had just done. I had just cut the cord. I had just pulled the rug out from under them. They were about to find out what it felt like to be on their own, and I wasn't going to be there to pick up the pieces. Next, I called the appliance store, the one where Jessica had bought a $50,000 kitchen suite. I talked to the owner, a man named Gary. I told him I was canceling the contract. He was angry. "What do you mean you're canceling? We already had everything delivered," he yelled. "Gary, I'm sorry. I'm going to pay you a cancellation fee. But the deal is off. I want the appliances returned, and I want my money back." He was furious, but I was calm. I told him that I had a right to cancel, and I was going to exercise that right. He hung up on me, but I knew he would do what I asked. He had no choice. Next, I called the custom furniture store. The owner, a woman named Maria, answered the phone. I told her the same thing. "I'm canceling the contract. I'm sorry, Maria, but I need to get my money back. I'll pay a cancellation fee, but I need my money back." She was upset, but she understood. She said she would do what I asked, and she hung up. I knew she would. She was a good woman. I sat in the dark for a few more minutes, the silence once again filling the cab. I had done what I had to do. I had taken the first step, but I knew it was only the beginning. This was a long road, a long, dark, snowy road, but I was going to walk it, and I was going to walk it alone. I drove home, the road still slick with snow. The drive was quiet, just the hum of the engine and the soft beat of the windshield wipers. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't want to hear Christmas music. I didn't want to hear anything that reminded me of what I'd just left. I thought about Ryan and Jessica. I wondered what they were doing. Were they fighting? Were they crying? Were they sitting in the dark, wondering what happened? I didn't know. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't care. I pulled into my own driveway. My old Ford F-150 looking a little tired next to my clean, well-lit house. I walked up to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped inside. The house was quiet too. But it was a different kind of quiet. It was a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of quiet that lets you know you're home. I walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light, and grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. I sat down at the table, the same table where Eleanor and I used to sit and talk about our hopes and dreams for Ryan. The same table where we used to do the books for the company. The memories were like ghosts. They were here, but they weren't. I sat there for a long time just thinking about everything. Thinking about the life I had built, thinking about the life I had given to Ryan, thinking about the life he had thrown away. It was a lot to take in. I felt a sense of relief, a sense of freedom. I had finally done it. I had finally cut the cord. I had finally taken back control. It was a good feeling. A really good feeling. The phone rang. It was Daniel Lewis. "Bob, I got the hold on the bank account. Everything is locked down. All the payments are frozen. Nothing is getting through. You're good." His voice was calm and reassuring. "Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. I'll call you in the morning to talk about the next steps." He said he would be waiting for my call, and he hung up. I knew I could count on him. He was a good man. The phone rang again. It was Sarah, my banker. "Bob, I got the protocol activated. I just want to make sure you're okay. You sounded a little off tonight." Her voice was filled with concern. "I'm fine, Sarah. I'm better than fine. I'm great. Thanks for doing that for me." She said she was happy to help, and she hung up. I knew she was. She was a good woman. I sat there for a long time, the silence once again filling the room. The phone didn't ring again. I knew what that meant. It meant that the calls had started. It meant that the other shoe had dropped. It meant that the world was about to come crashing down on Ryan and Jessica. I wondered what they were doing now. Were they still sitting in the living room? Were they arguing? Were they crying? I didn't know. And I didn't care. I got up from the table and walked into the living room. I sat on the couch, the one Eleanor and I had bought when we first got married. It was a little worn, a little faded, but it was ours. It was a piece of our history. I thought about the perfect furniture in Ryan's house, the perfect leather sofa, the perfect modern table. It was all so soulless. It had no history. It had no soul. I turned on the TV. A Christmas movie was playing. A little boy was asking his dad for a new bike. His dad said he couldn't afford it. The little boy was sad. But then the dad and the little boy built a bike together out of old parts and rusty metal. The little boy was so happy. It was a good movie, a really good movie. It reminded me of my own father. He never had much money, but he always had time. He always had love. He taught me how to work with my hands. He taught me how to build things. He taught me how to be a man. I watched the movie for a while, but my mind was elsewhere. It was back at Ryan's house. I could see it all. The lights going out, the music stopping, the chaos, the panic, the look on Jessica's face, the look on Ryan's face. It was all so clear. I knew they were in a world of trouble. I knew they were about to find out what it felt like to be on their own. And I wasn't going to be there to pick up the pieces. I wasn't going to be there to save them. I was going to let them sink. I was going to let them drown. I was going to let them learn their own lessons. I had given them everything, and they had taken it all for granted. They had thrown it all away. And now they were going to find out what it felt like to have nothing. The phone rang at 5:47 in the morning. I knew it was coming. I'd been awake since 2, just lying in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking. I let it ring twice before I picked it up. It was Daniel Lewis. He sounded chipper, a little too chipper for the hour. "Bob, you were right. They're trying to figure out what happened. I'm getting calls from all over the place. From the bank, from the real estate agent, from the guy who sold them that fancy car. They're all trying to figure out why the payments stopped. I've told them all the same thing. No comment." He laughed a short, dry laugh. "They have no idea what's coming, do they?" I asked, my voice calm. "No, Bob, they don't. They think it's a mistake. They think it's a glitch in the system. They think they can just make a phone call and everything will go back to the way it was. They don't know the game they're playing. They don't know the rules." "They're about to find out," I said. "I'm coming in. I'll be there in an hour." I hung up and got out of bed. The house was cold. I walked into the bathroom and splashed some cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was a little grayer. My face was a little more wrinkled. But my eyes were the same. They were filled with a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. Not after everything I had done for them. Not after they had thrown my kindness back in my face. I got dressed and went downstairs. I made a pot of coffee the same way I had for the past 30 years. I sat at the kitchen table and drank it slowly. I thought about Ryan. I thought about the little boy who used to sit on my lap and watch me work. The little boy who used to ask me a million questions about how things worked. The little boy who used to say he wanted to be just like me. He used to say that. I hadn't heard him say it in a long time. I finished my coffee, put on my coat, and walked out the door. The sun was just starting to rise. The sky was a pale pink, a beautiful picture of a new day. But for Ryan and Jessica, it was the start of a nightmare. I drove to Daniel's office, a sleek, modern building in downtown Chicago. I walked inside, and a young woman at the front desk gave me a quick smile. "Mr. Carter, go right on in. Mr. Lewis is waiting for you." I walked into his office. It was a big, fancy room with a view of the city. Daniel was sitting at his desk, a stack of papers in front of him. "Bob, I've been waiting for you. I've been a busy man this morning. I've been dealing with a lot of angry people. But I think I've got it all under control." He handed me a folder. "It's all in here, all the paperwork, all the contracts, all the proof." I opened the folder. It was all there. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of Ascend Tech Solutions, the company where Ryan worked. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of the townhouse. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of the BMW. A stack of papers detailing the bank accounts, the credit cards, the whole thing. It was all there. The whole enchilada. "You've been a busy man yourself, Bob," Daniel said. "You've been building this empire for years, haven't you?" "I've been building a future for my son," I said. "I've been building a safety net. I've been building a place where he could land if he ever stumbled. I just never thought he'd use it as a trampoline." Daniel laughed. "Well, he's about to find out what it feels like to land on a hard surface. They both are. So what's next? What's the next step? You've cut off the money. You've frozen the accounts. You've taken away the house, the car, the credit cards. What's left?" "The job," I said. "The job is next. The one he thinks he got on his own. The one he thinks he's a rising star at." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "You're going to fire him." "No," I said. "I'm going to have him fired. I'm going to make sure he knows exactly what he did. I'm going to make sure he knows that the person he looked down on, the person he allowed his wife to disrespect, is the person who gave him everything he has. And the person who's about to take it all away." Daniel just looked at me. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. We both knew what was next. We both knew what was coming. It was going to be a long day. A very long day. But I was ready. I was more than ready. I was hungry. I was ready to take back everything that was mine. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. That morning, my mind went back to the old days. Not the days of a successful business and a fancy townhouse, but the days when my hands were always dirty and my wallet was always thin. I was just 20 years old when I met Eleanor. She was a waitress at a diner, and I was a young electrician just starting out. I remember asking her out, and she laughed. "I don't date guys with grease under their fingernails," she said. But she did, and she never looked back. We got married a year later. We didn't have much, just a little apartment and a lot of dreams. We worked hard. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes more, and she worked nights. We saved every penny. We wanted to build something for our family, something that would last. When we found out she was pregnant with Ryan, we were over the moon. We knew we had to work even harder. We wanted to give him the world. We bought our first truck, an old beat-up Ford F-150. It was the same truck I drove last night. It was our baby. We worked out of that truck for years, going from job to job, from town to town. I can still see her sitting in the passenger seat doing the books by hand. She was my partner, my best friend, my everything. We built our company, Carter Electric and Home Services, with a lot of sweat and a lot of love. We built it from the ground up. When Ryan was born, our lives changed forever. He was our world. We wanted to give him everything we never had. We wanted to give him a better life. We didn't want him to have to work as hard as we did. We wanted him to have it all. But we also wanted him to have a good head on his shoulders. We wanted him to know the value of $1. We wanted him to know what it felt like to earn something, to build something. When Ryan was a teenager, he started to get a little lazy. He didn't want to work. He wanted things handed to him. He wanted to go to a fancy school, but he didn't want to study. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just shrugged. He didn't get it. He didn't understand what it was like to work for a living. When he was in college, he got in with a bad crowd. They were all from rich families. They all had everything handed to them. They were all entitled. I tried to talk to him about it, but he just told me I didn't understand. I didn't understand what it was like to be a college student. I didn't understand what it was like to be him. I knew he was in trouble. I knew he was on a bad path. I tried to pull him back, but he just pushed me away. I knew I had to do something. I had to do something to save him from himself. I had to do something to give him a chance. I had to do something to give him a future. That's when I found Ascend Tech Solutions. It was a small tech company, but it was on the rise. I saw a lot of potential in it. I saw a lot of potential in the founder, a young guy named Mark. I met with him and I told him I wanted to invest. I told him I wanted to help him grow his company. But there was one condition. I wanted my son to have a job there. I wanted him to have a good job, a good title. I wanted him to have a future. Mark was a good man. He saw the potential in my company, and he saw the potential in my money. He agreed to my terms. He agreed to give Ryan a job. He agreed to give him a good title. He agreed to give him a chance. Ryan was so happy. He thought he had done it on his own. He thought he had landed the job all by himself. He thought he was a rising star. He had no idea that I had made it all happen. He had no idea that I had given him everything. I had built him a safety net. I had built him a place where he could land if he ever stumbled. I just never thought he'd use it as a trampoline. But that's what he did. He took my generosity for granted. He took my kindness for granted. He took me for granted. And now he was going to find out what it felt like to have nothing. I wasn't going to be there to save him. I was going to let him sink. I was going to let him drown. I was going to let him learn his own lessons. And I wasn't going to stop until he did. The day after Christmas passed in a quiet blur. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't return any texts. I knew the calls were coming. I knew the texts were coming. But I didn't care. I spent the day alone, thinking about what I had done, thinking about what I had to do next. I had a good feeling about it. A really good feeling. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's office. The sun was shining, but the air was cold. A biting Chicago cold that went right through you. I walked inside, and the same young woman at the front desk gave me a smile. "Mr. Carter, go right on in. Mr. Lewis is waiting for you." I walked into his office. Daniel was sitting at his desk, a stack of papers in front of him. "Bob, I've been waiting for you. I've been a busy man this morning. I've been dealing with a lot of angry people. But I think I've got it all under control." He handed me a folder. "It's all in here, all the paperwork, all the contracts, all the proof." I opened the folder. It was all there. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of Ascend Tech Solutions, the company where Ryan worked. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of the townhouse. A stack of papers detailing my ownership of the BMW. A stack of papers detailing the bank accounts, the credit cards, the whole thing. It was all there. The whole enchilada. "You've been a busy man yourself, Bob," Daniel said. "You've been building this empire for years, haven't you?" "I've been building a future for my son," I said. "I've been building a safety net. I've been building a place where he could land if he ever stumbled. I just never thought he'd use it as a trampoline." Daniel laughed. "Well, he's about to find out what it feels like to land on a hard surface. They both are. So what's next? What's the next step? You've cut off the money. You've frozen the accounts. You've taken away the house, the car, the credit cards. What's left?" "The job," I said. "The job is next. The one he thinks he got on his own. The one he thinks he's a rising star at." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "You're going to fire him." "No," I said. "I'm going to have him fired. I'm going to make sure he knows exactly what he did. I'm going to make sure he knows that the person he looked down on, the person he allowed his wife to disrespect, is the person who gave him everything he has. And the person who's about to take it all away." Daniel just looked at me. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. We both knew what was next. We both knew what was coming. It was going to be a long day, a very long day. But I was ready. I was more than ready. I was hungry. I was ready to take back everything that was mine. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. That afternoon, I drove to Ascend Tech Solutions. It was a big modern building. Glass walls, a shiny lobby. I had a meeting with Mark, the CEO. I walked into his office. He looked nervous. "Bob, I'm glad you're here. I've been getting some strange calls from the real estate company, from the car dealership. They're all saying they've been cut off." "What's going on?" he asked. I looked at him. "Mark, you're a good man. You've done a good job with this company. But we have a problem, a big problem. And his name is Ryan." Mark looked confused. "I don't understand. Ryan, he's a good kid. He's a good worker. He's a fake," I said. "He's a fraud. He didn't get this job on his own. I gave it to him. I bought my way into this company to get him a job. I'm the owner. I'm the one who calls the shots. And I'm here to tell you that he's fired, effective immediately." Mark's face fell. "Bob, You can't be serious. He's your son. He's my son. And he's a grown man. He's going to find out what it feels like to earn a living. He's going to find out what it feels like to work for a living. And he's going to find out what it feels like to be on his own. I looked at him. I'm not asking for your permission, Mark. I'm telling you what to do. He's out. And I want you to make sure he knows that I did it. I want you to make sure he knows that the person he looked down on, the person he allowed his wife to disrespect, is the person who gave him everything he has, and the person who's about to take it all away. Mark nodded. He looked sad. He looked disappointed. But he also looked like he understood. He knew that I was serious. He knew that I was not going to stop until I had everything back. He knew that I was not going to let them get away with this. He knew that this was not a game. It was a war. And I was going to win. That was the last time I saw him as a professional. I had a meeting with my lawyer, Daniel Lewis, and the CEO of Ascend Tech Solutions. Mark and I told them both that I was going to fire my son. I was going to make sure he knew exactly what he did. I was going to make sure he knew that the person he looked down on, the person he allowed his wife to disrespect, is the person who gave him everything he has, and the person who's about to take it all away. I went to my office the next morning and sat there for a while. I was ready to take back everything that was mine, and I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. The phone rang at 10:34 in the morning. It was Mark, the CEO. Bob, I just wanted to let you know that I've done what you asked. Ryan is out. I told him that the company was going through a restructuring and that his position was no longer needed. I listened to him, my face a mask of stone. He looked shocked. He looked lost. He said he didn't understand. He said he had been working so hard. He said he had been a good employee. I told him that I had no choice. I told him that the company was going in a different direction. He didn't believe me. I think he knew something was wrong, but he didn't know what. No. He'll find out, I said. He'll find out soon enough. I hope you know what you're doing, Bob. He's your son. You're destroying his life. I'm not destroying his life, Mark. I'm rebuilding it. He's going to find out what it feels like to earn a living. He's going to find out what it feels like to work for a living. And he's going to find out what it feels like to be on his own. He's going to be a better man for it. I promise you that. I hung up the phone and sat there for a while. I felt a sense of relief, a sense of peace. The first shoe had dropped. The second shoe had dropped. The third shoe was about to drop. I knew what was next. I knew what was coming. I was going to get my life back, and I wasn't going to stop until I did. I drove to the townhouse. The blinds were all drawn. The lights were off. The Christmas decorations were still on the porch, but they looked sad. They looked like a party that had ended. I parked my truck and walked up to the front door. I rang the doorbell. No one answered. I rang it again. Still no one answered. I pulled out my key and opened the door. The house was a mess. It looked like a party had ended and the people who were there had just left. The furniture was all askew. The Christmas presents were all unwrapped and scattered all over the floor. The Christmas tree was still standing, but it looked sad. It looked like a tree that had been abandoned. I walked into the living room. I saw a note on the coffee table. It was from Jessica. It said she was leaving. She said she was sorry. She said she couldn't live like this. She said she had to go. I wasn't surprised. I knew she was a coward. I knew she was a fake. I knew she was a fraud. I knew she was a liar. I knew she would leave him. I knew she would leave him when he had nothing. I knew she would leave him when he couldn't give her what she wanted. I looked at Ryan. He was sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He looked lost. He looked defeated. He didn't even look up when I walked in. He didn't even know I was there. He was so lost in his own world, his own little world of pain and regret. I sat down next to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. "Ryan," I said. "Ryan, son, it's me." He looked up. His eyes were red. His face was a mask of pain. "Dad," he said. "Dad, what happened?" "Happened," I said. "I happened. I took everything back. I took it all back. I took back the house. I took back the car. I took back the job. I took it all back. I did it. I'm the one who did it." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a look of betrayal. "Dad, why?" he said. "Why would you do this?" "Because you let her disrespect me. Because you let her call me an embarrassment. Because you let her tell me I had no place here. Because you stood there and said nothing. You stood there and watched her destroy me. And I'm not going to let you do that to yourself. I'm not going to let you do that to our family. I'm not going to let her destroy you. I'm not going to let her win. I'm going to take back everything that's ours. And I'm going to make you a better man for it. I promise you that." He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. He looked at me with a look of betrayal and a look of regret. He knew what he had done. He knew he had made a mistake. And he knew that he was going to pay for it. He was going to pay for it for the rest of his life. He looked at me with that raw, wounded look like a little boy who had just found out Santa wasn't real. That was a look I knew all too well. I had seen it on his face before a long time ago. A look of betrayal, a look of sadness, a look of regret. He was so lost in his own world of pain that he didn't even notice the sound of the front door opening. Jessica walked in, her face a mask of false concern. She was dressed in her new coat, a fancy one that I had bought for her. She was a vision in white, a beautiful picture of a woman who had just left her husband. She looked at me, a fake smile on her face. "Bob, I'm so glad you're here. Ryan he's a little upset. He doesn't understand what happened. Can you please tell him that it's all just a big misunderstanding? Can you please tell him that everything is going to be okay?" Her voice was sweet, a little too sweet. It was the voice she used when she wanted something. It was the voice she used when she wanted to manipulate. I looked at her, my face a mask of stone. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not again. Not ever again. "Jessica," I said, "I have something for you." Her eyes lit up. She thought I was giving her another gift. She thought I was going to hand her another check. She was wrong. I walked over to my bag and I pulled out a small, thin envelope. It wasn't filled with money. It wasn't filled with a check. It was filled with the truth. I handed her the envelope. "This is for you. It's a gift. From me to you." She looked at it, a sickeningly sweet smile on her face. She thought it was a joke. She thought I was playing a game. She was wrong. She opened the envelope and her eyes widened. Her face drained of all color. She looked at me, her mouth open in shock. I had exposed her. I had shown her for the liar she was. She looked at Ryan, who was now standing, looking at her, a confused look on his face. He knew something was wrong. He didn't know what, but he knew something was wrong. Jessica's hands were shaking. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She was frozen. I looked at Ryan. "Ryan, son, I have something for you too." He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion. "I have something to tell you." I had his attention now. He was no longer looking at his phone. He was looking at me, and he was ready to hear what I had to say. I took a deep breath. "Ryan, I have to tell you something. I had his attention now. He was looking at me, his eyes wide with anticipation. This house, it's not yours. It's mine. The car in the driveway, it's not yours. It's mine. The job you have, it's not yours. It's mine. I own it all. I own everything you have. I am the one who gave it to you. And I am the one who is taking it all back. His face fell. He looked at me, a sense of betrayal on his face. He didn't understand. He didn't know. He thought it was his. He had lived here for a year. He had planned his future here. But it wasn't his. It was mine. And I was about to take it all back. I was going to take it all back from him. From both of them. And I wasn't going to stop until I had it all. Jessica, her face still pale, finally found her voice. He's lying, Ryan. He's crazy. He's mad that we're so happy. She started to cry, her voice thick with fake emotion. He's just trying to ruin our lives. Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of confusion. He looked at me, then back at her. Jessica, what's in the envelope? He asked, his voice a low whisper. Jessica's eyes darted around the room, a desperate, trapped look on her face. She couldn't speak. She couldn't lie. She just stared at the envelope in her hand, the evidence of her betrayal. I looked at Ryan. It's all in there, son. All the proof, all the receipts, all the emails, all the secrets. It's all in there. Ryan walked over to her, his hand outstretched. Give me the envelope, Jessica. He said, his voice firm. She shook her head, clutching the envelope tightly to her chest. No, Ryan, it's nothing. It's nothing, I swear. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a new kind of anger. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of suspicion. He looked at the envelope in her hand, the proof of her betrayal. And he knew. He knew that everything she had said was a lie. He knew that everything I had said was the truth. He knew that he had been living a lie. And he knew that he was going to pay for it. He was going to pay for it for the rest of his life. Jessica was a statue frozen in her betrayal. Ryan was a statue frozen in his shock. I was a statue frozen in my resolve. For a moment, the three of us stood there in a quiet, painful tableau. The only sound was the muffled ticking of the clock on the mantelpiece, a stark reminder of the time we had lost, I had lost. He had lost. She had lost. We had all lost something that night. And now, it was time for the final act. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the note Jessica had left. It was a flimsy piece of paper, a thin excuse for a goodbye. I looked at Ryan. She left, I said. She's gone. She left you. She left you when you had nothing. She left you when you couldn't give her what she wanted. She left you when she found out that you were just a boy playing a man's game. She left you when she found out that you were a fraud. Ryan looked at the note in my hand. His eyes filled with a new kind of pain. A different kind of pain. It was a pain that went deeper than anything he had ever felt before. It was the pain of a man who had just found out that he had been living a lie. The pain of a man who had just found out that he had been used. The pain of a man who had just found out that he had been a fool. He looked at Jessica, his eyes filled with a new kind of anger. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of betrayal. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of hatred. He knew now. He knew that everything she had said was a lie. He knew that everything she had done was a fraud. He knew that she had used him. He knew that she had played him. He knew that she had played him for a fool. Why? He said. Why would you do this? Why would you lie to me? Why would you use me? Why would you do this to me? His voice was a low, painful whisper, a whisper that spoke of a broken heart, a whisper that spoke of a broken man. Jessica's face was a mask of fear. She looked at me, a desperate, trapped look on her face. She couldn't speak. She couldn't lie. She just stared at the envelope in her hand, the evidence of her betrayal. I needed money, she said. I needed money for my business. I had to do it. I had to do it for us. I did it for us. Her voice was a shaky, pathetic whisper, a whisper that spoke of a woman who had just been caught, a whisper that spoke of a woman who had just been exposed. I looked at Ryan. She's lying, son. She's lying to you. She's lying to herself. She's a coward. She's a fake. She's a fraud. She's a liar. She's a thief. She's a snake. She's a snake who stole your life from you. And she's a snake who is about to pay for it. Jessica's eyes darted around the room, a desperate, trapped look on her face. She tried to run. She tried to run out of the room. She tried to run out of the house. She tried to run out of our lives. But I was there. I was there to stop her. I grabbed her arm. My grip was like iron. You're not going anywhere, I said. You're going to stay here. You're going to stay here, and you're going to face the music. You're going to stay here, and you're going to face your husband. You're going to stay here, and you're going to face me. You're going to stay here, and you're going to face the truth. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of fear. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of anger. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a new kind of hatred. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking that I was a monster. She was thinking that I was a demon. She was thinking that I was a villain. But I wasn't. I was a father. I was a father who was trying to save his son. I was a father who was trying to save his family. I was a father who was trying to save his legacy. I was a father who was trying to save his soul. I let go of her arm. She didn't move. She didn't run. She just stood there. She just stood there, a statue of a woman who had just been caught. She just stood there, a statue of a woman who had just been exposed. She just stood there, a statue of a woman who had just lost everything. She just stood there, a statue of a woman who was about to pay for her sins. Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of anger. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of betrayal. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of hatred. He knew now. He knew that she was a liar. He knew that she was a thief. He knew that she was a snake. He knew that she was a snake who had stolen his life from him. He knew that she was a snake who had played him for a fool. And he knew that he was going to make her pay for it. He was going to make her pay for it for the rest of her life. His rage was a living thing, a fire that had just been lit. I could see it in his eyes, a raw, burning look that was both terrifying and a little sad. He looked at Jessica and she flinched. She looked at him and she saw a man who had just found out that he had been living a lie. A man who had just found out that he had been a fool. She saw the rage and she was terrified. She should have been. He took a step towards her and she took a step back. "Ryan," she said, "please, I can explain." "Explain what, Jessica?" He said, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. "Explain the emails. Explain the receipts. Explain the bank statements. Explain all the times you laughed at my dad behind his back. Explain all the times you told me that he was just a simple old man who didn't understand our lives. Explain all the times you told me that he was a coward. Explain all the times you told me that he was an embarrassment. Explain all the times you told me that he had no place here." She couldn't speak. She couldn't lie. She just stood there, her face a mask of fear. Ryan looked at me. "Dad," he said, "why didn't you tell me? Why did you let her do this to me?" "Because I wanted you to see it for yourself," I said. "I wanted you to see her for who she really is. I wanted you to see that she didn't love you. She didn't love you for who you are. She loved you for what you could give her. She loved you for your money. She loved you for your name. She loved you for your position. She didn't love you for you. She loved you for what she could get out of you, and she was going to use you, and she was going to throw you away." Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of pain, a pain that went deeper than anything he had ever felt before. It was the pain of a man who had just found out that he had been living a lie. The pain of a man who had just found out that he had been used. The pain of a man who had just found out that he had been a fool. He took another step towards her. "Give me the envelope, Jessica," he said, his voice firm. She shook her head, clutching the envelope tightly to her chest. "No, Ryan, it's nothing. It's nothing, I swear." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a new kind of anger. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of suspicion. He looked at the envelope in her hand, the proof of her betrayal. And he knew. He knew that everything she had said was a lie. He knew that everything I had said was the truth. He knew that he had been living a lie, and he knew that he was going to make her pay for it. He was going to make her pay for it for the rest of her life. He grabbed her arm. His grip was like iron. "Give me the envelope, Jessica," he said, his voice a low, dangerous whisper. She tried to pull away, but he held on. He held on tight. He held on tight, and he didn't let go. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a new kind of anger. "Give it to me, Jessica," he said. "Now." She looked at him, her eyes filled with a new kind of fear. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a new kind of anger. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a new kind of hatred. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I knew what she was thinking. She was thinking that I was a monster. She was thinking that I was a demon. She was thinking that I was a villain. But I wasn't. I was a father. I was a father who was trying to save his son. I was a father who was trying to save his family. I was a father who was trying to save his legacy. I was a father who was trying to save his soul. She let go of the envelope. It fell to the floor, the papers spilling out all over the place. Ryan knelt down and picked them up. He looked at the emails. He looked at the receipts. He looked at the bank statements. He looked at the evidence. And he knew. He knew that everything she had said was a lie. He knew that everything she had done was a fraud. He knew that she had used him. He knew that she had played him. He knew that she had played him for a fool. He stood up. He looked at her. "I want you to leave," he said. "I want you to leave now. I want you to get out of my house. I want you to get out of my life. I want you to get out of here. And I don't want to ever see you again." She didn't say anything. She didn't run. She just walked out of the room. She walked out of the house. She walked out of our lives. She was gone. She was finally gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. A sense of peace that I hadn't felt in a very long time. I looked at Ryan. He was still standing there, holding the papers. He was still standing there, a broken man. He was still standing there, a man who had just found out that he had been living a lie. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a new kind of pain. A pain that went deeper than anything he had ever felt before. It was the pain of a man who had just found out that he had been a fool. Watching my son, a man broken by his own choices, I didn't rush in. That pain, that raw disappointment, it was exactly what he needed. It was the final rainstorm to wash away his arrogance and his entitlement. I had given Ryan everything to build a strong life, but he'd wasted it. Now it was time for him to build it himself with his own 2 hands. I watched him kneel, picking up each fallen paper. The emptiness was gone from his eyes, replaced by a deep, heartbreaking pain. He looked up at me, and I saw a different person, the man I had always hoped he would be. "Dad," he choked out. "I'm so sorry." I didn't say a word. I just walked over and pulled him into a hug. With my calloused hands that had built an entire company, I held my son who had been deceived, lost, and was now found. He hugged me back fiercely, sobbing like a little boy. He cried for everything he had lost, everything that had shattered. He cried for a father he had treated so poorly, and for a wife who had abandoned him. After a long while, Ryan pulled back, his eyes red but full of new resolve. "Dad," he said, "what do I do now?" I looked him straight in the eye without a hint of hesitation. "You start over. You get a job on a construction site just like I did. You learn how to earn a living and stand on your own 2 feet. I knew this was a difficult choice, but it was also his only chance to grow up. He looked into my eyes, nodded, and I knew he was ready. I put my hand on his shoulder. "It won't be easy, but I know you can do it." A few weeks later, Ryan moved out and started his new job. He had to deal with the mountain of debt Jessica left him, but he faced it head on. As for me, with the $2 million I had originally set aside for Ryan, I decided to do something different. I started the Eleanor Carter Scholarship Fund, named after my beloved late wife. This fund would help deserving students who want to become electricians, giving them the bright future they earned. This wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of redemption. I had saved my son from a fake life and taught him a priceless lesson. And in doing so, I found a new purpose for myself. The money I had earned with my own sweat and tears would now be used to create a new generation of honest workers. My life has taught me that true generosity isn't just about giving away everything. It's about giving someone the tools to build their own life. For years, I confused subsidy with support. Setting a boundary and finally saying no wasn't an act of revenge, it was an act of correction. It allowed my son the dignity of facing his own consequences and gave me back the peace of owning my own life. You cannot save someone from a storm they create. You can only show them how to build their own shelter and trust that they will pick up the hammer. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please show your support by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below.